Hello and welcome to the entrepreneurial journey. I have Richard Simpson with me here today. Hello, Richard. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, really good. Thanks. Really good. Okay, so you're joint managing director of Tayburn, and they're a creative agency who work across the UK and internationally.
Yeah, that's
Cool.
right. Yeah.
Who are your favorite clients?
Oh, all of them.
Of course they are.
That's the politician's answer, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, do you know what? My business partner Malcolm and I were just talking about this the other day. And I mean, this may sound a bit cute, but generally speaking, we have the nicest bunch of clients. And we've had a couple of changes to the agency over the last couple of years. So we've had some new clients come on board, but we're lucky that we've got a lot of very established clients that I've been working with for a long time. And generally speaking, the relationships that we have with them are fantastic. But it's all about, I mean, I know it's another sort of cliched statement, but it's all about the people. And so we're genuinely lucky to like the company of the people that we work with, which is great.
Good. Now, you just moved your head, okay? And I couldn't help but notice that's a Death Star, isn't it, there?
That is a Death Star.
Right,
yes.
okay, well, let me just show you something. So I see your Death Star and I raise you.
You raise me a Chewbacca. That is amazing. Where did you get that?
I saw it in a charity shop just before Christmas.
Oh, incredible.
And I was with my daughter walking through Morningside and I went, oh my God, there's Chewie.
Oh.
And I was just like, oh, I so want that. And she nipped in and bought it, wrapped it from a Christmas present.
Oh, that's amazing.
So he's part of our Tricrest paraphernalia. And I also, we're digressing here, but I also notice you have trainers as well on your board.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What's that about?
So I suppose I could say I'm a sneakerhead.
Okay.
Nike specifically, though, like it's my favorite brand.
Okay.
And over lockdown, I started to read up about collecting sneakers. So there's a sneakers app by Nike,
right?
And they do limited edition drops. So I've always loved trainers, but I particularly like Nike trainers. So the ones at the top, they're Jordan 5s, which is something that I've always wanted from about the age of, I think that's my first pair must have been about 12 years old.
Right.
One of my buddies had them. He brought them back from the States. I thought they were the coolest things ever.
Yeah.
And then the ones in the middle are Nike Air Max 90s.
Right.
And they're probably my favorite model. And then the other ones there's Jordan 1s and then Nike Dunk high tops as well. So what I do is I tend to buy limited edition collaborations. I buy them in my size as well. I'm a size 12, so typically there's fewer of them made, so they're bigger. And it's the whole idea that if the investment, they're not really investments, I tell my wife they're investments. If they go bad, then I'll wear them. But I have sold a couple of pairs for a profit. So
all right, nice one. Very good.
Yeah. Anyway, so
put you in touch with a former client of mine, Vivek Jairam, who runs a law firm in the States called Jairam Law.
Okay.
And he has been involved in sneaker law over there with some of the top designers who've designed some really off-the-wall stuff. And he knows all the ins and outs about the IP protection and stuff like that. I'll put you in touch on LinkedIn because
you must do.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've just read Emotion by Design, which was written by Nike's former CMO, Greg Hoffman. And I'm part of a collective of marketeers called Marketing Kind that uses marketing skills for good. And so we're very keen to try and see if we can get him to do one of our events and talk about it. So I was going to take a picture and send him that as part of my
do. Yeah, I'll put you in
part of my begging email.
Yeah. Cool, because he's bound to know. I'm going to write that down so I remember. All
Yeah.
right. So back to your business now. Tayburn, been around for a long time.
Indeed.
You didn't start it. How and when did you get involved?
Okay, so I got involved in 2008, and I had been working for an international design consultancy called Elmwood, and that was my first job in the creative sector. And I was lucky from the age of 16. I'd always wanted to work. I thought in an advertising agency. As it happened, it was more sort of design and brand has been my background. Yeah, Tayburn were always very much on the radar of Elmwood. Elmwood at the time was founded in Leeds, but was in the middle of a growth trajectory. And I was the first Scottish employee setting up, well, as part of a team that set up the office in Edinburgh. And then I just got the opportunity to meet some of the guys at Tayburn. They had an opening in business development. I'm a salesman, really. I'm a marketing grad. It's sales, selling marketing services is what I've spent the bulk of my career doing. And so, yeah, in 2008, I joined, and I've been lucky to have sort of stayed there ever since, really.
Lucky or good at your job?
Yeah, well, I suppose a combination of both. I think I've always enjoyed. It's like I said, it's all about the people, and I've never really considered it a job, because a big part of what I do is going out and meeting new people and chatting to them about their business or about the role that they have in the business that they work in. And I've always really enjoyed that. And I think when it feels like that, it's a lot easier. And consequently, that's when opportunities emerge and arise. And in well, actually, it was a wee bit before then. It was about 2012. I got the opportunity to, I was granted some options, which I then converted into equity. And then in about 2015, I was able to buy even more of the business around about that point. And that ultimately led to the place where I co-owned it and became joint MD with Malcolm Stewart, who's my business partner.
Brilliant, fantastic. It's a really great success story, because I knew Eric, who founded it originally.
Yes.
And he's done what many people in professional services can't do, in that his name was over the door and he managed to exit and have a sustainable business that's continued to do well without him.
Yeah.
From the other side of the fence, as the person buying into it, what did you notice that he was doing, do you think, that enabled that to go through successfully?
So it's a really interesting point, and actually it's a really good question. I feel incredibly lucky to actually the thing that I'm sort of most disappointed about in some ways, I've never actually worked with Eric as it were, because when I joined, he was officially in a non-exec chairman role, and he was a conduit between Noble Grossart, who at that point, the late Sir Angus Grossart, owned a portion of the business, and so Eric acted as a bit of a conduit between Noble Grossart and the Tayburn board. So he would be in the office sort of monthly for board meetings, and I'd see him occasionally then. And he was always very encouraging and supportive, and we'd meet for lunch, and I'd pick his brains and learn all sorts of stuff about that. So it's a shame in many ways that I didn't actually get to work with him as closely as Malcolm did over the years. But what I noticed about what he'd done was he'd created a succession plan. I wasn't initially part of that, I have to say, but it was a combination of luck and circumstance that allowed me to do so. So there was the original buyout was done, must have been about 2000. I'm not going to get my dates quite right here. It must have been about 2005, 2006. And Malcolm was part of that, along with 3 other guys, one of whom was very much Eric's right-hand man, Bill Davidson. He was our FD for a long, long time in the business.
Okay.
And so I think, you know, what appealed to me was obviously the length of standing of the business, the name and the associated reputation, the robustness in which it was run, and you know, Bill played a huge role in that. And then, you know, I've always said this, I'm incredibly grateful to Eric because, like myself, I mean, I've made a virtue out of attending the opening of a bag of crisps over the years. And Eric did the same thing. I mean, he was ubiquitous, absolutely everywhere. So everyone kind of knew him or knew the business. And it's a bit like when we first met.
Yeah.
And it happens quite a lot. You know, people will say, "Oh, I work with Tayburn," and so I have to sort of go back and think, "Gosh, right, who was that? And what was that on?" So it's amazing. So it's made my job significantly easier than if it was a startup where, you know, you don't have that degree of awareness and you don't have that reputation from the outset.
Yeah, good. Excuse the noise in the background. My dog just fell off his bed. I share my office with my dog, or rather, my dog shares his extra bedroom with me. I think that's probably the better way around of putting it. Yeah. So, okay, that I've got so many questions around that. That comes with its own challenges. So you're kind of the new kid on the block-ish. You've got people there that have been there for a long time, that know the business inside out and have worked with Eric. Were there any challenges when you stepped into the joint MD role because of that newness, or do you think it really played in your favor?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've sort of felt it at first when I made a board director, because I mean, it's interesting though. I mean, that was a story I was telling myself at the time, and I became acutely aware of the perceived difference in my position. But in reality, actually, it probably didn't change anything, but I was telling myself a story. It did change things. And so guess what? Things started showing up for me that fed that narrative at the time, which was quite interesting looking back. And, you know, part of that was, you know, in some cases, some colleagues felt, having been equal, they were then maybe trying to show that they, you know, they had a stronger opinion, or you know, they had a viewpoint that needed shared, and was you know, they were more open to being involved in discussion and debate about things, which, you know, at that time, if I was feeling sensitive towards that sort of stuff, it felt like, well, are they just challenging me because they're doing it for the sake of it, because the situation's changed, or is it genuinely coming from a place of wanting the best sort of outcome? So I felt that a little bit. And then I suppose it's like anything when you come onto a board, and at that point there were 5 directors on the board, including me. I felt a need to prove myself, which again is just a story that I ran. So, you know, to make sure that my contributions, or I felt that I had to make sure that my contributions were particularly thoughtful, and so I'd spend additional time worrying about these things as opposed to just feeling moved to do the prep necessary and trusting my intuition and experience to ask and say the right things.
Looking back, do you think you were trying too hard?
Absolutely, 100%.
Right. Yeah. You sometimes see that in yourself and others, don't you? And
Massively.
When you've seen it in yourself, I think you more easily recognize it in others, and you secretly want to take people to one side and go, it's okay, you don't have to try that hard.
Chill out.
Yeah.
Chill out. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, it's a really interesting point, because I'm very big on flow and trying to take things as they are, and yeah, you can sort of wind yourself up a bit, and it's unnecessary. And I think a lot of that is learned behavior.
Yeah.
And it relates to the environment, perhaps. And I mean, bearing in mind, this is going back nearly 10 years. Well, actually, it's not quite, it's 7, 8 years. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of of a particular time that there was a need to be, very businessy and very serious and very clever and work yourself hard and all this, just feels really like, hard, and it doesn't need to be like that. It really doesn't need to be like that. And that's not to be flippant, and that's not to say that it's not important. And that's not to say that you don't prepare, but yeah, it's a lot easier when you chill out and go with the flow.
Yeah, it really is. And I often say to business owners, look, we're not doing brain surgery here.
Yeah.
Unless you are in a safety critical industry, nobody's going to die because of a decision that you make about, I don't know, which paper clips you're going to use. So let's just not overthink this. Let's just keep it simple. And like you say, Richard, work with what you have in front of you.
Yeah.
And what you think might turn out to be the right course.
Yes.
Nobody ever knows, do they? We don't have a crystal ball.
No.
But you can make educated guesses, and that's literally all you can do. It is kind of plan with what you have in front of you for the outcome you want.
Yeah, no, it's very, very true. That absolutely. I mean, I think a big part is belief, and self-belief that you're there on merit, and that you have the tools within you at your disposal, and all you need to do is just draw on them.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that.
Yeah. Now tell me about being a joint MD, because when as a business consultant and coach, when I hear joint MD, I kind of wince slightly and go, how's that working? How does it work? It clearly does.
Why?
So how it works?
Why do you wince?
Because whenever I have seen that in the past, okay, so here we go, beliefs, sets of beliefs, this is what we're going to challenge, and I love it. So it's either been a fudge because people don't want to upset somebody, and they want to keep them in place, or it's been because there's a 50-50 split in the shareholding. And again, I would never recommend a 50-50 split in a shareholding, because you know sometimes that gets stuck. Even if one other person has only 5%, you need a mechanism so you're not ever stuck. So yeah, those are my beliefs. I want you to blow them out of the water.
Well, I mean, I think most fundamental to that is, just because something's happened in the past doesn't mean it's an indicator of what's going to happen in the future. And I think, I think that happens a lot in my experience, pitching to certain industries, they want to see evidence of past experience, and decisions made to appoint you based on your ability to have performed well in the same sector in a previous example. And just because you maybe have or haven't doesn't mean that you can or can't in the future. So no, it's interesting. The reason I ask is because it does come up a lot. And I mean, I think there have been probably quite well documented examples of where it is a fudge, and therefore consequently there's no clear leadership. But I would also say that there's some great examples of it working very, very well. Now, we brought a chairman into the business not long after Malk and I took it over, and his name was Mike Reid, and he's a fantastic guy. He was the UK European MD of Sapient Nitro, which was one of the fastest growing digital agencies around about the sort of 2000s, 2010 onwards. And they ultimately sold to Publicis in about 2014, I think it was, for an eye-watering sum, well into the billions. And they were founded by two joint CEOs, and you know it was a big success. And so, you know, again, just to say that had been a success doesn't mean to say that Tayburn has been a success. Also, please don't think I'm crass enough to compare Tayburn with that success as well. I absolutely am not. But I think to get into it really, there had been, when you've got a business that's, well, it's now 43 years old, but you know, 40 years old, and there has been quite a degree of complexity to the architecture of the shareholding. External investors, sorry, external shareholders, internal shareholders, all with different stakes, all with different compensation. What we discovered was quite a lot of inequality, and what Malk and I had to do, and it's you know, that's not a complaint. It's a fact. It was what was presented to us when we took it over. So we had to untangle quite a lot of that. And we agreed from the outset that what we would do would be completely equal and fair. The other part of the way it works is that we're incredibly lucky. We're incredibly aligned,
right?
In terms of our backgrounds, our outlooks, and our beliefs. But we're very different in terms of our personalities and our skill set. So I'm your classic extrovert, and very much focused on the external side of selling Tayburn and promoting Tayburn and representing the business. Whereas Malk is very much internally focused. He's an exceptional advisor to clients and can take an account and grow it to substantial level of fee income. He's also all over the operational side of things, having been a creative director, so he understands how the creative department works and what good account management looks like, and what good client service looks like. So he's a bit of a rare breed. I mean, insofar as that, yes, he comes from a creative background, but he's very commercial as well. So typically the way it works is I would do the external bit, he would do the internal bit, and the big decisions typically relate to people and money, and so we would share those decisions.
Okay, great. And it works beautifully.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're still going.
Yeah.
We've been through a credit crisis and a pandemic, so all sorts of black swan events. We're still going. We still speak to each other.
Good. And I think you've hit the nail on the head in that you're aligned at that deep values level.
Yeah.
That, you know, you share those beliefs and those values, and your outward behavior is different because your personalities are different, but at the core you share that, and I think that is the only way it could work, I think.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's very much, you know, absolutely doing the right thing at all times. Very honest, transparent approach to the way that we run the business, you know, what we share with our colleagues. And it's this sort of point that maturity and experience matters as well, because, you know, again, we're lucky to have the history of the business, but we've both been doing it a while. And so we know what good looks like, and we know what bad looks like as well. And so, again, you know, that's one of the things that whenever clients work with Tayburn, you know, Malk and I are exec sponsors between us and every single client.
Okay.
So it's not a question of winning the pitch and then disappearing. We still remain involved. I mean, the degree to which we're involved varies, but we still do, you know, remain quite, you know, in good contact and quite hands-on in that regard.
Good. And where's the business going? What are its ambitions?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question, because I think we're to be honest, we're rebuilding after COVID. So we experienced a pretty challenging time, like a lot of businesses did. So when we took over the business in 2015, we had seen the what Mike, our chairman, referred to as unreasonable growth occurring, particularly thanks to digital technology.
Right.
And so quite a good lesson, actually. We wanted a bit of it, and we were probably a little bit too concerned by what other people were doing and not actually on the core equity within the Tayburn brand, which is a recognition for strategic brand thinking and creativity.
Okay.
So we went down a design and build path for websites, very much on the idea that you could tell the brand story, but then do that through digital technology. Had some agencies doing one or the other, but not that combined bit. We had a lot of success. We'd been through a lot of challenge in 2015 as well, which I can come back to. But by 2019, we'd seen a fourth year of consecutive profit growth. We got top line growth back. We were winning net new business in the new area of design and build against established players. We had a blue chip client base of Weir Group, Brodie's, Scottish Rugby, Skyscanner, and it was going very, very well. And then COVID happened, and the thing I liked about the design and build model was that typically our business model was project based. You would win a project, deliver it, but then you'd be put back at the start of the cycle again, having to win something again. So it was very difficult to plot your income beyond 1 or 2 months ahead. And with design and build, obviously you've got hosting, support, maintenance, and feature development.
True.
And so a number of the clients I mentioned there had agreements in place where you could then know that at the start of each financial year, you had X% of cost already covered. And so the rest would come from either new business or client development. So it was a pretty good place to be in. And unfortunately, when the pandemic hit, the first thing that went were retainers. Now, it didn't mean that they stopped spending, but what we lost was that guaranteed revenue. And then throughout the pandemic, we started to realize that actually we, neither Mark nor I are techies. So we're not capable of sitting down with the CTO and talking about complex integrations. It's not what we do. We talk about brands, we talk about creativity, we talk about customers, we talk about marketing, we talk about communications. We don't talk about that. And so we had to rely very much on other people for that knowledge. And, we didn't invest in talent at our level to come in. It was quite a big consideration. And again, a part of that was back to the difficulties that we'd faced in 2015. So we found ourselves in a position where, we had build projects overrunning, going over budget. It was loss making. We had disruption within the team as well. It wasn't particularly well integrated, not through their fault. I mean, the buck ultimately stops with us. But it's just, it just didn't feel like the sort of space that we wanted to be in anymore. And so we made the decision, actually, no, we're gonna come out of that. So what happened was last year we managed to, with the clients that we had support agreements with, we managed to help them towards some degree of transition to other providers, or in some cases they were already reviewing what they were going to be doing in that area anyway. And it meant that we were able to focus on, what we're known for and what we're good at. Yeah. So we had a stellar 6 months actually last year. The first half of the year was absolutely incredible. It really helped us get through. It was a wee bit flatter towards the back half of the year, but it allowed us to get much needed momentum behind this change in direction. And so really what we're focused on is, we talk about helping brands to accelerate their success, and we help brands and brand owners blaze a trail in their categories. So we're really looking to continue to do that over the next, over the next couple of years.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Okay, we're all dying to know what happened in 2015.
Yeah. So I mean, it's sort of classic situation. just a lot of change happening at once. A lot of influences coming in from different places, and ultimately so a big part of the business, well, a traditional part of the business had been in corporate communications, corporate reporting. That market was in terminal decline. We decided to get out of that, and the director who was responsible for that, he left the business, and we bought out his stake. Our finance director retired after many years' service, and we bought him out. Noble Grosser obviously were exiting as well, so we had a term loan to buy them out. So you can see there's a pattern emerging here.
Yeah.
We then saw, again, the industry shifting, a lot of implementation-based design work, artworking being taken in-house, the general decline in that sort of revenue, a shift away from that towards digital income, but not having the reputation to support it. So we had that perfect storm of falling income, client turnover, some staff turnover, and a lot of cash coming off the balance sheet. I mean, historically, because of the way that the business had been run, we always had a very healthy balance sheet. And all of a sudden in 2015, we didn't have that at all. And it got really quite hairy. But, that was when, and I mean, there was another part of it as well. We had a third partner who unfortunately had to leave the business due to ill health. And so, that was a massive blow, because there was an unforeseen thing. I mean, we were aware that we're going to divest. We made the decision to come out of reporting, and we knew Bill was going to retire, but we didn't know that this event was going to happen as well. And unfortunately, that's 4 pretty big things happening all at once, aligned to this sort of shift in the industry that saw more and more digitization, and even greater accelerated influence of technology. So Malc and I was sales director at the time, Malc was creative director at the time. We're both like, oh my God, right, we need to get hold of this. And so, first thing you do, you look at your cost to income, do everything you can to shore up your clients and generate opportunities from your clients. That's your best sales opportunities. And you start doing everything you can to win new business.
Yeah.
And then, you focus on just replenishing cash. And, given what had happened, I mean, that was a sort of 2-3 year process really that started to build, which is why, it was the 29th of September 2018, we became debt free. We were getting back into that position of growth, which is why 2019 was such a fantastic year, and in all these terms, you could look back and go, geez, wow, what a ride.
Yeah, definitely. And for a business at that point, calculations was over 35 years old.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will associate that kind of skin of your teeth stuff and hair and scare and stuff with younger businesses, but it's, I don't know whether it's reassuring or whatever, but any business at any time, no matter how well established and with such a great reputation and great people running it, can hit those bumps in the road just through circumstance.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think looking back, I mean, hindsight's always an easy thing, but there's an adage, I think it's Warren Buffett, only invest in businesses you understand. We didn't understand design and build. We understand design. We didn't understand build. We're not techies.
Yeah.
So there's something in that. The second part is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't be. I mean, it's important to be aware of the competition from a positioning perspective, but don't ever doubt in your own abilities and get too caught up in what other people are doing. Because you take, it's not so much we took our eye off the ball, but I think we just lost sight of what we're good at and where the value is in Tayburn.
Mm.
I mean, to be fair to the decision, it felt like a good move at the time because that was where we're seeing a lot of the deal flow.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people saying, we need to look at our brand. We were thinking, okay, but actually that was really our website. And it happened because it had the brand element attached to it. We thought, well, we know about brands, and look, websites, everyone needs their website. But I think what we've seen in the market has generally been a bit of a sort of polarization. You got a number of companies doing incredibly well off the back of digital transformation, where they're thinking it's not just about the website, but it's the whole digital footprint of an organization. You've got the likes of Deloitte and Accenture moving into that space as well because they've recognized that there's opportunities there. That seems to be very much served by .NET technologies and Microsoft.
Okay.
Microsoft Azure. And then at the other end of the market, you've got the all-in-one plug-and-play solutions, the likes of Squarespace and Wix, and even WordPress with its themes, where anyone really can create a website from scratch. And the harsh reality was that we were in the middle ground. We weren't, we didn't have engineering and tech capability to compete at that end. Equally, we didn't have the economies of scale to compete competitively at that end. So, I mean, we find ourselves doing websites now, but it's very much from a design and UI perspective, and it's very much, at a particular level. And we use Squarespace and Wix and WordPress. We've got a WordPress development partner who are superb as well. Right. So they take away all that pain because that's what they do. They know it.
And you're right. It's so, I think in the early days, it wasn't specialist enough, but now it's so specialist to build a good, well-functioning website with all the SEO and all the complexity of that it's involved. Yeah. You're absolutely right. And you're also highlighting something that I think is really important for SME businesses to understand, is that you can't, as an SME business, operate in the middle ground. You've either got to go large and like you say, Deloitte, Walmart, mass production, huge global, or you've got to do pilot high, sell it cheap, Squarespace. And even then you've got to go really large to do that and have the technology to be able to do that. You're right. Being in the squeeze middle is not a great place for an SME because you just can't compete, can you?
Pretty challenging. And I think, at one point, we were competitive. We had the talent, and we had the credentials, and we had the knowledge. But things move. People move on, and the market changes, and that's one thing. I've learned a lot is that the rate and pace of technological change is huge as well. And so, you've got all sorts of new applications and features coming in. And I mean, I think, again, the other reason for moving into, or, building back into, what we're known for doing is it's the bit the robots can't do.
Absolutely.
It's where the value is. I mean, we didn't just do this on a whim. We did some research. We spoke to clients. We spoke to the market. What is it that they valued? And the things that kept coming back were, well, we want sort of that strategic insight. We want people to be able to understand a competitive landscape, a market, the people that operate within it, our audiences, and what motivates them. But then we want creative ideas. We want ideas that are going to change the way people think about brands. We want ideas that are going to help brands to sell more of their products and services. Yeah. That's fundamentally what we're doing. Interestingly enough, we're seeing as well that a lot of the conversations we're having are how that sort of insightful strategic creativity can solve business problems.
Huge. Absolutely. Of course it can. Definitely.
Yeah. So it doesn't.
An example?
Yeah. It's. I suppose there's a couple. There's one that's new, and it's a 300-year-old family of vintners from Leith called
Okay.
JG Thomson. So the brand is owned by ASC, the Artisanal Spirits Company, and it also owns a Scotch Malt Whisky Society.
Oh, okay.
And so the SMWS was based actually, in Leith, the vaults, the society there, that was the old JG Thomson offices.
Okay.
Back in the day.
I always wondered why they were there.
Yeah,
Seems like a really odd place to put the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. Now I know.
Yeah, but actually, all along that area, you had all the whiskey bonds as well. So there was obviously, with it being the port of Leith, you had a lot of whiskey and other goods coming in. So JG Thomson, it's this 300-year-old family of vintners and blenders with extraordinary tastes, and so we created this world to help reimagine the brand for today's market. So it's all about artisanal spirits, so small batch productions, whiskies, and it's whiskey done simply. Nice. Rather than get bogged down in the complexity of age statements and maturation and casks and all cask finishes, all this kind of stuff. It's literally rich, sweet, and smoky. And there's a rum and there's a gin, and we've got a couple of aged expressions as well, which are at the premium end of things. But it's really, really simple, and it's delicious. It's fantastic stuff as well. So for us, we're about reimagining that world for today, for a new business, which is really exciting. And so there's lots of examples, I think, of that, where it's about innovation, it's about new product development, creating new brands from scratch. We're just about to launch a domestic ISP brand. I can't say any more about it at this point. Okay. It's very early stage, but I mean, super exciting project. You find yourself, there's a lot of ways in which you can bring creativity into the workplace to help teams cross-selling services, working more collaboratively with each other, basically streamlining things so that the customer can have a better experience.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I could talk to you for hours, Richard. My last question is, if Tayburn had a personality or a character, how would you describe it?
Oh gosh, that's a really good question.
Now, you do this for your clients all the time. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not quite like that. But I mean, I think the personality is very much, as I said, there's a honesty and a transparency to what we do. Like we don't white label partners. We work, we work with partners to deliver for clients, and that relationship's always very transparent. It's the same with staff. We're very open about our income and our financial performance. So I think there's an honesty and a truth that goes there. Nice. Obviously there's a maturity and an experience that comes with having been around for a while, but equally there's an evolutionary component to that too, which means that we have an ability to stay relevant and to keep imagining ourselves. So I'm sort of being drawn to Star Wars here.
Right.
So I would like to say something. It's a bit like Obi-Wan Kenobi, maybe. Ewan McGregor through to Alec Guinness and back to Ewan McGregor again.
Yeah, cool. I love that. I love it, obviously, because I am a huge Star Wars fan. Yeah, I am. No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Richard. I really, really enjoyed that.
No, it's a pleasure. No, thank you, Rebecca. It's lovely to see you.